Today's episode is brought to you by DeSanto Propane. DeSanto Propane is 4 generations strong as a trustworthy family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more info or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane. For FingerLinks1.com, I'm Josh Durso, and this is FLX Today. This morning we are continuing our series previewing local elections through conversations with candidates who will be on the ballot in November. Lynn Chatfield is running for another term as Wolcott Town Supervisor. Supervisor, thanks so much for being here today. How are things going in Wolcott?
Wolcott is a poverty-level town, and the town board and myself have been working to find grant monies to get projects done with no effect on local tax base. It's a lot of work, time consuming to keep looking. The one thing I don't like about that part is majority of the time you have to hire a grant writer, which is very costly, and there's no guarantee you'll get any results from that. I've done that a couple times in my career as supervisor and ended up getting nothing. And it really bothers me to spend $1,000, $2,000 for a grant writer to 6 months later find out you don't gain anything from that money spent.
Yeah. You mentioned poverty, obviously rural community. What are the biggest issues that you see on the horizon as far as things that you would like to accomplish in another term?
To get anything businesses to this area, infrastructure is a very important. Water, sewer, they're both very costly items, and any business that even looks toward this end of Wayne County, the only reason they're looking is because 104 is the main state road going through, and they want to stay within sight of 104, and we just don't have any infrastructure in that area. Yeah.
Is that something that when you think about things that are potentially most daunting for the town over the next 5 to 10 years, is that ruralness, the lack of infrastructure, kind of a big thing? And would you like to see the state perhaps work a little more with rural communities to try and build some of that infrastructure out?
Yes. Right now we're working right now, pre-COVID, the town of Wolcott started to work with the residents on Blind Sodas Bay Road, Metzger Road, King, that area of the town, which is the furthest west, for a public water, because most of those people don't have good, safe drinking water. And the town, since I've been in office, we've always done water districts by petition instead of board resolution. That way, you know, when you go house to house to house asking with the price and they sign the paper, you know that you have over 51% of the people that want it, because they have to pay for this system themselves. And we did that. We came up with a water district. It came in approximately $2.7 million, and it had to go to the state comptroller's office, and it took time to get through that process. COVID hit and it come back. Now that same water district is $4.5 million.
Wow.
And the deal with it is when these people signed that petition, we had these figures for 2.7, and you can't go over. I mean, the debt service fee for that district was $700 a year. You can't go over that $700. Well, this project almost doubled, $1.8 million more. So we've got to start from scratch again. But without grant monies, these people down there cannot afford that.
I was going to say, how does, obviously we're talking about like a difference of 4 years, essentially 2019 to present day. How do you approach that? Like, that seems like it would be an incredibly difficult situation to navigate, just with residents alone probably being a little concerned about what that final cost is going to be for taxpayers.
Well, the first time through, we received no grant money for that district, which is the first time town of Wolcott has done a water or sewer district and not received grant money. And I told the residents in that area, once we got a district established, I would go out and look and see if I could find grant monies to apply to that to help lower that cost. And the way it's done, I can't go today, get grant money for a water district. I have to wait until it's shovel ready, then go find grant monies. It's, to me, it's kind of backwards, but it's the way it's done. So if it wasn't for COVID slowing everything down for almost 2 years, when it come back, we could have started. And at that point, the town would have done a resolution to create this water district. At that point, I could start looking for grant monies to help pay for that. But until that's done, I can't look for grant money, and we can't do the resolution to create a water district because the figures that came in is over what we told the people. So it's kind of like town of Wolcott is between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, that's a very difficult situation. We've heard a lot of talk at the state level about housing and wanting to bolster housing across the state. I'm curious what a community, in light of what we were just talking about, we're kind of talking about economic development, businesses that want infrastructure, the cost of infrastructure, and obviously a community that doesn't have a lot of excess funds to play with. When you think about the housing situation, where does the town of Wolcott fit into Wayne County's housing in the next 5 to 10 years? Is it a viable spot, or is it something that you think that, ultimately the state's going to need to pony up some money, added resources, so you guys can bolster infrastructure? That way people do want to move to the town of Wolcott. The
Wayne County IDA office is doing a housing study now. I think MRB's doing the study. I spent an afternoon with MRB going over possibilities of a housing project in the town of Wolcott. Excuse me, my allergies. I took my medicine, but it's not working.
All good.
They wondered if there's any property where it could possibly do a housing, which means water and sewer. I have an area that water and sewer is a possibility that's very close to that. We talked about that, and they are looking into, I don't know what the next steps are, so it's basically in their hands, but there is a spot convenient for a housing project, and they're thinking, because of the Micron that's being built further west, that with those types of jobs coming, housing, people would drive from Wolcott area because it's on 104. It's a direct route to, so that's in the works. The study's being done, and I will continue to be with that, see what we can do, or even start looking. I was going to start next year, like Port Byron has a housing that's being completed now. They're just starting to rent it out, find out how things like that work. If there's a possibility of getting something similar to that over this end of into Wayne County.
Yeah. I'm curious, how do you balance the county and town responsibilities? What's your philosophy to that? How do you approach balancing the county issues that you have to deal with, and also dealing with the town issues that you have to deal with as supervisor?
In Wayne County, the town supervisors, also the county board of supervisors which run the county. At this present time, I'm chairperson for public works, and I'm on government ops and economic development committees. It's nice because you go to these committee meetings and you hear of different things going on in other parts of the county, and you can bring some of that information back to your town board, and that gives us maybe a new avenue to start looking to see if there's something we can do. And on the other side of that same coin is I can take issues for the town of Wolcott to these committees and say, hey, I got what can I do? I need this. So that works out pretty well. It gives you different avenues to take. It gives you more people that will give you more contacts because maybe the town of Macedon supervisor has talked to somebody somewhere on some grant monies that might be available, but nothing to help Macedon. It might be something that would help the town of Wolcott. So it's a great place to get more information and to get support from other supervisors and the county if I have a project going.
Right. To that end, there are a couple reader submitted questions that we got pertained more to the county, I think, than to the town itself. Contract negotiations, obviously, with road patrol deputies, Wayne County Sheriff's Office, public safety is always front of mind. What is your thought process on how the county should be approaching public safety, especially when it comes to retaining police officers, deputies? I would imagine for a community like Wolcott, being rural, that it's a pretty front of mind, top of mind kind of issue for you.
I am on the committee, the negotiation committee for the team for the road patrol union. We've been in negotiations quite a while. The Teamsters called impasse. We have still maintained some communications between the parties. I believe, it's kind of hard to say, but I believe that we may have opened the communications. We have a meeting scheduled for a week from Friday to go back to sit down at the table and talk.
Yeah.
If you can't sit at the table and talk, you can't gain. So with good hopes, we can get back to the table. I know I myself went into the first session, the county had plans, or county knew they had issues with the 3 to 5 year new hires.
Yep.
And that was our main concern, to keep, once we get them, keep them. So hopefully our next session, when we all get back to the room again, we can open these talks back up and maybe come to an agreement and get this taken care of. I think we're pretty close. It's just, let's get back to the room and talk.
Sounds like you feel optimistic about where things stand and where they're going.
Yes.
Yeah. Another item that's in that same, we'll call it in the same bin. First responders in general. I'm thinking fire, EMS, that sort of thing. Recruiting and response time. Obviously, recruiting is, you were talking largely about volunteer EMS and firefighters across Wayne County. Response time in more northern and rural parts of the county seem to be a concern for residents. When it comes to that whole situation, that entire, how do we get more first responders? How do we keep our volunteer services full? What do you think the town or the towns or the county, this is probably more the county, should be doing or could be doing to bolster that, if there's anything in their playbook even to jump onto?
I used to be active volunteer fireman for Wolcott Fire Department. I was assistant chief. I was training officer. In my time doing that, we had a lot of volunteers.
Yeah.
But then the state putting more restriction or more training and more mandates on volunteer to get these trainings. It's come to the point that people don't have time to maintain all these trainings to be an active firefighter. And it's also come to the point where there isn't the people in this area anymore that we used to have. I always, it's hard to get someone in their 20s and 30s that's starting a family. Everybody both have to work to come up with volunteering time and taking these training to be a fireman or ambulance personnel. My first year in office, when I got to the county level, the ambulance service for the Wayne County was being talked about. And they started the process of what to do with this because they could see the handwriting on the wall. And it takes a lot of time to tackle such a huge issue. And thanks to the ARPA funds, they invested millions of dollars into creating Wayne County Ambulance Service, which is up and running. And just first of the month, we received a letter from the town of Sodus Ambulance that they are no longer in service. They just have ran out of money, ran out of people. And so that now is being turned over to the county. So the county has hired another crew to help provide service in that area.
And you're talking about just in the last 30 days, the 1st of September?
Yes. Wow. September 11th is the last official day for the town of Sodus Ambulance.
Wow.
They sent to the New York State Health Department the letter stating they no longer provide service as of that date.
And it seems like, we've talked and we've had conversation with folks and officials down in Yates County, rural counties going to a countywide system to try and fix at least the EMS side of this. But there's also the firefighter side of it, which you mentioned. A lot of training, a lot of time. It's time consuming. It's volunteering, but it's not like volunteering at the local club or organization every Saturday or whatever the case may be. It's literally whenever something happens. When someone says, I'm concerned about response time, what do you say to them? Do you feel like Wayne County is in a good enough spot still that response time is holding up around the county?
The response time is not in a good place. It hasn't been for quite a few years. The county did a study on that, hired Finch. I think Finch was the company that did the study, our response times for ambulance service, which is, you almost could say for fire department too, because they're almost hand in hand, was down. And this is why another reason they started creating the ambulance service. The fire service now, when I was active, most of the merchants on Main Street were volunteer firemen. So when the whistle blew, they could leave the store, they go down. Now we don't have that. So on the fire side, when it's the response time, Wolcott has something, they automatically, mutual aid, Red Creek, South Butler, North Rose, send everybody, start everybody, because we don't have the manpower to get there. So Wolcott may have a pumper, but it's terrible. And it's a huge thing to start to tackle, to figure out how to, because we don't have that many calls to say, like, hire a driver 24/7 to sit in Wolcott. It's going to be a big deal. And there's a difference doing something with the volunteer fire departments to doing something with the ambulance companies. The state laws are different. It's more complex, the volunteer fire department, to do something with those without changing state laws.
Right. This kind of falls in the same realm, shared services. Do you think that is kind of an option for some communities in Wayne County or similar counties for that matter, I guess, as someone who's been, working in this now for a bunch of years, is shared services a direction that could potentially help this issue out?
Well, for the fire departments, the mutual aid system would be classified as shared services.
Right.
Other than that, because of the state law, everybody's hands are pretty much tied till we start spending many hours of researching and figuring out how do we take the next step to come with that. I know the town of Wolcott, we have contracts with Fairhaven Fire Department, Red Creek Fire Department, Wolcott Fire Department, and every year we have those three contracts. And for EMS, we have a contract with Lakeshore Ambulance and Fairhaven Ambulance to cover just the town of Wolcott.
Yeah.
So we got 3 fire departments we work with to cover just the town of Wolcott. So if you break up some other townships, because the way they're laid out, Butler would be a good one. They would have to work with Savannah and Clyde and Wolcott to cover their township. So it's not like town of Wolcott has a contract with Wolcott Fire Department to protect it.
Right.
We have to come up with other options to give the best service we can possibly give. to our residents.
And I would imagine that's to keep response time semi-equal.
Yes.
Around most addresses.
Yes.
Yeah. You had another shared services nugget here that you wanted to share with us. Talk to us about salt storage. What do we have going on there?
Previous town of Wolcott, previous administration tried getting grant monies for a salt storage facility, salt barn. Never got much traction on it. Yeah. When I got in office, I tried, and I hired a grant writer, and we got shot down. And then 2 years ago, I was at the pit stop getting my coffee, and Superintendent of North Rose Wolcott School District, Mr. Pullen, asked me if he could store his salt at our highway department. And I told him he had to go see Zach Decker, but I didn't see a problem with it. And I left, he left, and halfway home, I'm going, wait a minute, shared service, because there is monies available through the state to combine services of towns, villages, county, schools. So I said, I wonder what Red Creek's doing. So I went to Red Creek, made an appointment with that superintendent. They store their materials at Victory, and he looked into building a salt storage on campus, which he thought would be not a huge expense, but because once state ed got involved, because salt is classified as a hazardous material to store on campus, he said that the price of everything just went where he could not justify doing it. Then I went to see the village of Red Creek. So then I started my path of shared service grant monies. And I just started going and going. I talked, I got Wayne County Soil and Water. Lindsay was gracious enough to help me with a WQIP grant. So it didn't cost me nothing to write it. I got $500,000 from them. And then I knew I could, you can't use state grant, but you can use state grant and federal grants. So I started looking on the federal side. Claudia Tenning, Congresswoman, she got in office. I started talking to her office, and they thought maybe, so we started looking what they might be able to offer. So I needed information to give. So it's a huge footprint. If you take Red Creek School District, North Rose Wolcott, and the town of Wolcott, we covered this school district's covered 8 towns, 2 counties, 2 villages, 3 villages. It's a huge footprint for the school district. So I worked with 911 to get information on weather reports from November 1st to April for the town of Wolcott, town of Huron, town of Butler, town of Rose, to compare 911. There was more accidents in Wolcott and Huron because we're along the lake than in Butler and Rose, which is right next to us. So I went with because if we had a facility large enough to store all the product that we needed to keep it dry, the response time to get the product on the roads, you'd have a better mixture. You'd use less salt because it's dry, and student safety for transportation to and from schools. So there's a lot of information to compile, which I'm thinking once Claudia Tenning's department got it and went through all that, then she gave us $2.4 million toward this new. So I have $2.9 million total. I don't have it quite yet, but we're doing the paperwork to get it. I want to make sure that this stays on my main focus, and then we'll start construction of a salt storage facility that meets all EPA standards. And this would be convenient for both school districts because the distance is where they're going now to this new facility is much closer, and we'll have product that everybody can use, and they will have their salt delivered to this facility. And it should be a good shared service project. And there'll be no tax increase on local people for this facility.
It's good stuff. That is very good stuff. Supervisor, I'm grateful for the time today. Thanks so much for talking with us.
All right. Have a nice day.
That'll do it for this edition of FLX Today. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this one, check out the show on your favorite podcast platform or subscribe to the FingerLakes1.com YouTube channel. Have a great day, and we will see you next time.